Welcome to Brand Builders TV. Deep dive topics, tools and resources brought to you by global thought leaders from within the Brand Builders Club. This show gives you access to the strategies that you can use to move forward with ease and flow in every area of your life and business. In today's show, Scott digs deeper into the next 3 writing hacks that will give your copywriting a brand building boost. Scott works with business owners just like you to use your language to connect with your readers and to get the results that you want. He's also the CEO and co-founder of Write for Results. And over the course of this series, you're going to get 3 things. You're going to learn how easy it is to write well. You're going to win more bids, more tenders, pitches and proposals if you put what Scott's sharing with you into action. And you'll also create world-class pitches to sell your idea, attract investment, or even change someone's mind. So sit back, enjoy the show, learn it, model it, and get shit done. Let's go.
Hi there, and welcome to episode 2 of this 3-weekly series of shows on the Nasty 9 writing issues. I'm Scott Keys of The Writing Guy, and I help professionals and business owners to write human and to double their tender win rate. So what are we going to look at today? I mean, what are we looking at over the course of these 3 sort of mini shows, if you like? And what are the Nasty 9? Well, I've been a writer and a writing skills trainer for about 16 years now. And I calculated the other day actually that in that 16 years, I've trained over 5,000 professionals in what I call persuasive writing, non-fiction, empathic persuasive writing. Whether you're writing a blog or an email or a sales letter or a book or an ebook or a bid or a tender or a proposal. I've, in this book, Rhetorica, a toolkit of 21 everyday writing techniques, I've identified 21 ways of writing persuasively. And in the 16 years that I've been delivering this training and the techniques, is really curious because the same issues kept on coming up, kept on repeatedly cross my path. Wherever I trained, whichever industry sector I worked in or trained in, the same 9 issues would come up. So I thought, well, let's try and tackle them all in one go. And about 18 months ago, I finally got round to creating an online program which tackles the Nasty 9. And that's essentially what these 3 shows are about. So what I'm going to do, just to put that all into context for you, I'm just going to run through what the 9 are. And then I'll share with you what we're going to cover today. So the Nasty 9 are weeing all over your reader, poor or absent planning, vague message or objective, and those are the 3 that we covered last week. What we're going to be covering today in this show is poor structure, that's number 4. Needlessly formal language is number 5. Waffle, wordiness and wind, which I'm sure a number of you can relate to. Those are the 3 we're going to be doing today. And then next week, next Wednesday, we're going to be looking at long sentences, very, very common problem. Passivitis, which is overuse of the passive voice. And finally, nounitis, which is the overuse of nouns, particularly abstract nouns. So let's get started. Let's look first of all at structure, poor structure. You know, why is structure so important? And why do most people just get it so wrong? So just to explain, the format I'm going to be using is I'm going to explain to you why this particular issue is in the online program and what we can do about it. So very simple kind of format. So what is the problem with structure, or why is structure? I actually maintain that structure is more important than language. Now the reason for that is that no matter how beautiful your writing is, no matter how eloquently or articulately you write, If you're sending your reader, your poor benighted reader, from pillar to post, and they don't know where they are, where they've been, or where they're going, in other words, your document or communication is completely unnavigable, then no matter how brilliant your writing is, you're going to lose them. And I'm afraid that when we lose our reader, that's failure. We failed as communicators when our reader basically loses the will to live and runs for the hills. There he goes, or there she goes. We've failed, abject failure. Structure is one of the most effective ways of keeping your reader engaged, because, let's face it, this is not about pretty words. This is about driving your reader to change their behavior through your words. So structure is absolutely vital and more important than language. So let me just share with you what I think typically goes wrong structurally with many or most B2B documents, communications. The reader opens the email or the ebook or whatever it may be, the communication, and they're greeted with background, context, exposition, introduction. I call it guff, basically. The trouble is that's Frank, our red boxer, who's probably the postman's come to the door and he's about to bite his leg off. But there's nothing I can do about that now, I'm afraid. They're greeted with what I call guff, exposition, introduction. The trouble is, what the reader is most interested in, the nub of the communication, is either buried somewhere in the middle of your communication or relegated right to the end in some great argumentational climax. And the obvious problem with that is that you're forcing the reader to trudge through what may be quite turgid and boring background, and they lose the will to live, they get bored, and they jump ship and they stop reading before they've hit your main message. And the format that I've described of background and then your main message is actually based on what is known as deductive logic, where we give the evidence followed by the message. Now, I've already explained to you what the problem is with that approach. The solution is really simple. So if you imagine that as a pyramid, or say it's going to be like this, so we're opening with the guff and your message is all the way at the end of your communication. Quite frankly, what do the best writers on the planet do? They invert their pyramids so it's shaped like that, if this makes sense, and they lead with what most matters to the reader. And that may be your answer to their question. That may be the major benefit of working with you. That may be your overarching conclusion. And then if the background stuff, if you like, is important, then they put it at the back in an appendix, or if they're writing online, through a clearly signposted hyperlink. The point is that this is about getting the reader to the value as quickly as possible. And that's why, even though it may be counterintuitive to lead with your conclusion, and that's not how we develop or draft the communication, nonetheless, leading with the answer or the solution or the conclusion is going to be most helpful to your reader. And that approach is based on what's called inductive logic, where we lead with the message followed by the evidence. I hope that makes sense. So we're inverting our pyramids and we're getting to the value as quickly as possible. Now, obviously, in order to do that, you need to know enough about the reader. You need to know what they're going to value, what's relevant to them and what's not relevant to them. Because otherwise you won't know what to lead with, will you, at the front of your document. So that's a very simple approach to structure. I'd really like to ask you a question now, which is why do you, and just, you know, put your comments, if you would, in the comments box. Why is it you think most people get things wrong structurally, that they give all the background and the information, and actually the nub of the message or the communication is relegated to the end? I'd be curious to know why you think that is. If you could just post some ideas in the comments, that would be great, and I'll respond to those. Okay, no comments as yet, which is absolutely fine. Let's crack on. Just to finish on the subject, let me just get rid of that. Forgive me. Okay, so just to finish on the subject of structure. So, you know, structurally we can, what I call, invert our pyramids. The other thing that we can do, another little device that is really neglected, and yet it's so simple. I mean, all this stuff, you know, let's face it, none of this is rocket science, is it? You know, but the other little device that we can use to really, improve our structure is subheadings, technically known as crossheads. You know, what are the benefits of subheadings? Pretty obviously, they break up great big slabs of text. You know, we've all opened an email or a communication and we've just been greeted with a wall of text, like a slab of text, and nothing is going to put you off more than that. It's daunting, it's uninviting, what it's basically telling the reader is this is going to be hard work. The beauty of using subheadings is it breaks up the text. It introduces more white space into the text, and it just makes it look, it breaks it up into bite-sized chunks. And it makes it look much more approachable and digestible and accessible and easy. Just a tip though about subheadings, and this is where a lot of people go wrong, make your subheadings as informative and as descriptive as possible. I see a lot of very bland, uninformative subheadings like background or context or salary, or, you know, not really giving you very much information. As long as your subheadings are not longer than a line, then, you know, really make them informative and descriptive. I hope that's useful. So let's move on. The next issue that I want to talk about is needlessly formal language. And if you happen to be a lawyer or an accountant or an engineer in professional services, you may be able to relate to this. I mean, I see a lot of this in professional writing. And that is, the problem is that there's a myth really sort of going around in professional services that professional writing, to be professional, it must be formal. In fact, there are two myths. One is that my writing must be formal in order to be professional. And the second myth is that I must show how clever I am. And the two obviously overlap, the two go together. Combined, we end up with communication that is long-winded, wordy, and uber formal, and basically puts a gap, creates a gap with the reader. It alienates the reader. And let me explain to you why I think that is. There's a beautiful concept in writing, which is the idea of register. Now, register is originally a musical term, But in writing terms, it's a scale of the formality of your writing. So we have formal writing up at the top, slang or street language at the bottom, and in the middle, I'll explain what we have in a moment. So let's use money as an example. So if you would, in the comments box, give me some synonyms, if you would, for the word money. Just give me some other words that mean pretty much the same thing as money in the comments box, and then we'll plot them on the register. Okay, so I'm not seeing any comments. I suspect that's because there aren't very many people live, which is fine. So I'm just going to crack on with this. So words for money, we'd have words like dosh, dough, wonga, spondulix, cheddar, bag. Obviously, you know, they would be in the bowels of the register. They're clearly slang. And by the way, whenever I run a workshop, obviously pre-lockdown, say I was in a Magic Circle law firm, people would come up with, there would be titters and sniggers when people came up with words like wonga, because it was as if they were being a bit seditious and a bit naughty and a bit mischievous, being in this sort of pucker law firm, using slang words. But anyway, that's an aside. Other words for money, we might say remuneration. We might say consideration, upon settlement of the consideration, very, very formal. Emolument is a particular type of payment, as I'm sure you know from the Latin emolumentum being benefit. I mean, it's kind of off the scale, you know. Liquidity, finance, funds, legal tender would be up there. So obviously those are pretty formal words. What might we have in the middle? We might have words like wages, pay, salary, possibly, similar level to money. And so you can hear and you can feel the difference between those words, can't you? Remuneration, consideration, long Latinate words as opposed to cheddar or bag or wonga. Very different energy. The point about this, and this is really important, is that the slang words, the words of the street, have got energy to them. They evoke an emotional reaction, like the laughter I was just talking about in the Magic Circle law firm. But words like the formal words like consideration, remuneration, and emolument, for me at least, they lack energy. They're emotionless, they're solemn, they're somber, they're sober words, sober as a judge, you know. So for me, they've lost their humanity. And the problem with those words, those uber formal words, is they push the reader away. They create a gap between you and the reader. And let's face it, if we're trying to persuade somebody to change their behavior, we want to bring them close. We want to establish some kind of empathy and connection and intimacy with the reader. And that's really what great writing does. We're intimate with the reader. So how about, what do we call the language in the middle? If the formal language is pushing the reader away, the language in the middle is more conversational, and we call it plain English. And there are basically, I've sort of captured or tried to capture the 5 elements of plain English in an acronym, and that is CRISP, CRISP. After all, what TV show, training show wouldn't be complete without an acronym? So plain English is clear. Your readers get it in one go. The R stands for readable. Plain English is readable. It's just very easy. You know, when you score plain English on the readability stats in Word, which I'll be showing you on the next show next week, you will be scoring at 60% or above. Very readable, very approachable. The I is impact. That plain English words are the ones with emotion and energy. They're vivid, they're visceral words. They're what I call kitchen table words. They create vivid and visual mental images in the reader's brain. Very, very powerful. They give impact. S is for speed. It's much quicker and easier to draft plain English because it's how we speak. We don't, well, most of us, we don't kind of use uber formal high register language. We tend to speak plain English. So speed is one of the characteristics of plain English. And then finally, personality. Nothing kills personality in writing faster than formal language, because it creates that gap that I've been talking about with the reader. Plain English is full of personality. And the reason for that is that plain English allows the writer's voice to come through the words. And that really is what... So, here's the thing. The three elements of great writing, in my humble opinion. Three elements. One, content. Your content must be world class. Two, clarity. It must be so clear that your reader gets it in one go. And then thirdly, personality. Personality is the difference that makes the difference. So personality includes, but is not limited to, writing with levity, in a light-hearted way, being playful in your writing, but not being flippant or frivolous, expressing an opinion, a strong opinion, an informed opinion, going out on a limb, saying what you really think. All that for me is personality. So content, clarity, personality. So, those are the five elements: crisp, clarity, readability, impact, speed, and personality. So let me ask you then some examples of plain English. So I'm going to ask you to translate from posh speak into plain speak. So rather than saying assist, we could say help. Rather than saying commence, from the French commencer, we could just say start or begin. Rather than saying construct, just say build, or make, or create. Rather than saying depart, just say leave. So depart from the French partir. Beautiful language, Romance language, but very flowery and florid. Whereas plain English is based on good old Anglo-Saxon. It's kind of meaty and earthy. You can hear and feel the difference. Depart, just say leave, Rather than saying request, just say ask. Means exactly the same. Rather than saying requirement, need. Rather than saying utilize, just say use or apply. And rather than saying transmit, just say send. That's how easy plain English is. And that's one of the ways in which you will cure, or you will explode or avoid the myth of equating professional writing with formal language. Nothing kills personality faster than formal language. Great. So let's move on. Let's move on to the third and final issue for today, which is waffle, wordiness and wind. I'm just looking at the time, 5 minutes, great. Very, very common problem. Pretty obvious why it's one of the nasty nine. I looked up the definition in the dictionary of waffle, and it gives a beautiful definition of empty verbiage. How do you think your reader's going to react to empty verbiage? They're going to go. You're going to lose your reader. So pretty obviously that's why it's in there. And it can result in communications failure. Your written communication simply won't deliver the behavior change that you seek. The answer to this is very simply to write concisely. And Conciseness is a term that gets bandied about an awful lot, but what do we mean by that? What conciseness means, in fact, somebody on my writing training on a workshop recently came up with a lovely definition. Conciseness is when you pack maximum value into minimum words. Or to put it another way, it's about making your point in as few words as possible. And you know what? The technique is really, really simple. But I'm not going to divulge it to you quite sort of straight away, as it were. Let's run through a few examples, and then you'll suss out what it is. I'm sure you will. So rather than saying, what might be an example? Rather than saying for the purpose of refueling, which is quite pompous, what could we say instead? We could just say for refueling or to refuel. So the answer is 2 or 4. Rather than saying she went overseas in order to further her career, just say she went overseas to further her career. Those 2 little words in order don't add anything. So therefore, what doesn't add any value in your writing doesn't belong there. So just get rid of them. He was fired for the reason that he lied in his interview. He was fired for lying in his interview. Or he was fired because he lied in his interview. Or having lied in his interview, comma, he was fired. Really simple. I write to you, this is a phrase that a lot of lawyers particularly love, in respect of. I write to you, sir, in respect of your invoice. I mean, a lot of lawyers might be tempted to say regarding your invoice, which is, okay, it's one word, but it's kind of pretty formal. Just say, I'm writing to you about your invoice. If the economists are not scared to use simple words like about, then I'm certainly not. Excuse me. What else have I got? Notwithstanding the fact that I really respect you, I'm going to ignore your advice. Even though, despite, although, nonetheless, however, or but, although I respect you, on this occasion I'm going to ignore your advice. So are you sussing out the technique for writing concisely? Here are a couple of more examples. In fact, using abstract nouns is very, 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 very common way of, or rather removing abstract nouns is a very common way of writing concisely. So I'll just give you a couple of examples before we finish. We could say this happens to a significant extent or degree, but why don't we just say this happens a lot or often? So get rid of those abstract nouns, extent or degree. I love this one. This report is of a confidential nature. This report is confidential, just get rid of nature, another abstract noun. This one is probably the most common example of needless words. We publish this report on a quarterly basis. Duh. We publish this report quarterly. Get rid of basis. Just cross it out. Remove it. In fact, you can get rid of 3 words on a quarterly basis. We publish quarterly. So I'm sure you've divined already that the how to write concisely, the single guaranteed way to cure the ailment of waffle, wordiness and wind in your writing is to omit needless words. So words that add no value, content, meaning or information in your writing do not belong there. And you can safely remove them as long as removing them does not change the meaning of what you've written. So that's pretty much it. I think we're done for time. Although I haven't said that, I think we've probably got a couple of minutes. I mean, if there are any questions or comments, that would be great. Very happy to take them, field them now. Otherwise, I will close this this episode number 2. Nope. Okay. So all I can say is thank you for watching. Tune in same time, same place next Wednesday, 30th of September, where we're going to be completing the Nasty Nine, where next Wednesday we're going to be dealing with long sentences, passivitis, overuse of the passive voice, and nounitis, overuse of nouns, particularly abstract nouns. So that's it for now. I hope that was useful, and really looking forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Bye for now. Cheers then. Bye-bye.
I hope that you've enjoyed the show today as much as we've enjoyed making it for you. If you've got anything out of this episode, please do tell someone else how they can subscribe to the Brand Builders TV channel at youtube.com/brandbuilderstv. Why not join us at our next Brand Builders Thinkubator, a global mastermind that we run every week to take away the loneliness of being in business on your own. For more information and to book your place, visit light.brandbuilders.club/Thinkubator. That's light.brandbuilders.club/Thinkubator. Until next time, be the ripple that you wish to see in the world, and we'll see you soon.